Hi folks, hope you all are doing well. I'm Karan Bandal from Econosite, your weekly economic wrap from India and around the world. So let's get started with United States' best friend right now, China, BRI, bad loans and Pakistan. About a decade back, China launched its ambitious Belt and Road Initiative or BRI aimed at building trade routes and infrastructure all over the world. As part of that plan, China began lending to about 150 countries that have signed up to the BRI. Through these loans, China claimed that they will help the borrower nations build roads, railways, ports, airports, and so on. So, how much has China lent out? There are no official figures for the total scale of the BRI lending, but experts believe Chinese institutions have lent somewhere in the ballpark of $1 trillion over the past decade. This made China the world's largest bilateral creditor. But the recent BRI loans related figures raise serious questions about the quality of these BRI projects and China's lending practices. In about 3 years, that is between 2020 and March 2023, roughly $78.5 billion worth of BRI loans issued around the world by the Chinese institutions were renegotiated or written off. Simply put, about 7.85% of the BRI loans turned into non-performing assets in a very short period of time. This is more than a four-fold jump when compared with a 3-year period between 2017 and 2019, where only about $17 billion worth of BRI loans turned into bad loans. As a consequence of this, in conjunction with the high interest rate environment and a slowing global economy, increasing number of BRI borrower countries are being pushed to the brink of insolvency, and Western creditors are blaming China for blocking debt restructuring negotiations. Here is more to highlight this problem further. It took 10 years between 2010 and 2019 for 14 sovereign defaults to occur, whereas just in the last 3 odd years already 14 sovereign defaults have taken place, including in the countries like Sri Lanka, Argentina, and Ghana. For the 117 BRI countries for which the data is available, look at the economic risk profile. 56 BRI countries are at the highest risk of default, with names like Myanmar, Syria, Venezuela, and Pakistan, to mention a few. Surprisingly, Saudi Arabia and UAE are also in this list, though their economic risk profile is fairly low. Only one BRI nation featured in the list with zero default risk, and that is Singapore, not surprisingly at all. But 99 out of 117 BRI countries are at a moderate to high risk of default. This puts the overall global economy in quite a precarious situation, not to mention the hardships these countries will suffer through if they end up actually defaulting on their debts. We saw what happened in Sri Lanka. We are watching what is happening in Pakistan. It's not pretty, and they haven't even officially defaulted yet. The terms under which China issues BRI loans are often opaque. Is it corruption, high interest rates, project selection, or just plain intentional debt trap diplomacy? One needs to ask why so many BRI loans are turning sour. With China's long-term growth trend slowing, working-age population shrinking, Western firms partially pulling out of the country, there will be a strain on public funding at home. All this to say, any more bailouts or restructuring offers are less likely to come out of China for these BRI countries. There is now a moderate likelihood of a mass sovereign default event unless China comes to the negotiation table. Let's go to China's neighbor. First, Apple stores in India. Apple is finally gaining traction in the Indian mobile market, which is heavily served by Android phone makers like Samsung, Xiaomi, Vivo, Oppo, and others. Apple's revenue in India during the just concluded financial year grew 1.5 times to $6 billion. Apple was the number one player in the premium segment of the market, which comprises of phones over $365. India's premium phone market expanded from 4% before the pandemic to 10% now. This trend is expected to continue, and Apple hopes to generate heavy demand for its products in this market segment. With that goal, Apple opened its first physical stores in Indian cities, Mumbai and Delhi, this week. Apple's CEO Tim Cook visited India for the store openings after 7 long years since his first visit here. On the manufacturing front also, Apple is being bullish on India. India's Minister of Commerce and Industry Piyush Goyal stated that Apple is aiming to make 25% of all of its iPhones in India. India currently makes about 3.5%. If India and Apple can achieve the 25% goal in a reasonable time frame, they will have created a template other major firms can follow that are looking to reduce their reliance on China. Let's go back to China. China's Q1 growth better than expected. In 2022, China grew only by 3% as it suffered the consequences of the zero COVID policy. With the end of these restrictions, economists were forecasting a 4% growth for China in Q1 of 2023. China's official growth came in at 4.5%, beating these expectations. Chinese reopening appears to have provided a significant boost to its economy, which is on course to hit a 6% growth for 2023 now. To ensure this, China's central bank held the policy rate steady, since inflation there is moderate and consumer confidence level is not as strong as the macro data suggests. So tight monetary conditions are not called for in China right now. In addition to that, Chinese government may push more stimulus through infrastructure investments by building more metro lines and increasing the number of 5G towers. Long-term growth trajectory for China though remains under the scanner. In summary, China is enjoying a healthy boost to its growth as it scrapped its zero COVID policy and reopens. On the other hand, China's BRI loans are coming under scrutiny now that almost all the BRI borrower nations are on the brink of insolvency. Debt restructuring may be the need of the hour, but such concessions are unlikely to come from China. Finally, India continues to show progress on the economic front and Apple plans to capitalize on it. I hope you enjoyed this week's wrap. I'll speak with you again next week. Until then, take care.